Remember when this was the biggest superhero movie sequel ever? In a world before Iron Man, the Avengers, and Thanos, it was a solo act that caused the most significant buzz in the superhero genre. I remember my excitement for this movie vividly. I'd constantly ask my parents to take me to see it. I'd watch the Venom episodes of the Spider-Man cartoons over and over again, to the point that I scratched the disc. I dressed up as Spider-Man for Halloween, and most relevant to this video, I bought 2 video games featuring the wall crawler, Spider-Man Web of Shadows and Spider-Man 3. One of those games I love and still replay to this day, and the other I haven't played since the late 2000s. But surely it can't be that bad, right? I mean, if X-Men Origins, a terrible movie, can have a really good licensed game, then surely Spider-Man should be able to do it, right? So Spider-Man 2 was well received, and the next 2 Activision Spidey games, Ultimate Spider-Man and Spider-Man Battle for New York, had inspiration from the shiny new Ultimate Universe Marvel was showing off during the early to mid-2000s. When Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007, the PS2 and GameCube were no longer the main consoles on store shelves. Now we had the PS3 and Wii leading the charge. This meant that Spider-Man 3 was released during the early days of a brand new console generation and bears the title of being the first HD Spider-Man game, with releases on Xbox 360, PC, and PS3. But there are 5 other versions of the game, 3 of them with an altered and somewhat lesser version of the HD edition for PS2, Wii, and PSP, and the other 2 being Game Boy Advance and DS 2.5D side-scrollers. Having played at least one of every version, the portable editions are nothing worth talking about and are basic in every sense of the word. The PS2 and Wii version of the game is better, but isn't as fully realized as Spider-Man 2 was before it, which is telling the dev team wanted people to play the HD versions of the game. So to appease the developers' wishes, I'm going to be playing the PlayStation 3 version of Spider-Man 3 for the first time since 2007. Oh boy. So the story in this game is once again a retelling of the film with added threads. It's so different, in fact, that the opening of this game starts with Spider-Man jumping into action, fighting off a new gang trying to blow up a building. This set piece serves as a tutorial for the primary ground controls, which are no different from the previous game. Once you save the day, Tobey Maguire's familiar voice comes in to offer some insight into what's going on.
I have this bad feeling like the sky is gonna fall or something. And soon.
You know, watching this opening cutscene makes me feel like Tobey Maguire played the game and now he's warning me of what's about to happen. It doesn't take long for this warning to ring true. Bruce Campbell is back to offer his wisdom, but while he teaches you how to use the swinging controls, you start to notice something. The swinging controls from the second game are off. The speed, flow, movement, everything about it feels off. Not as stiff or fake as the swinging from the first game, but it is a step backward. The game tries to teach the player the proper techniques for picking up speed and having fun with it, but nothing can replace what was once there. They even have these dates with Mary Jane sprinkled throughout the game where she makes requests on how she wants you to be swinging. This is where the controls truly rear their ugly head. The biggest issue I and many others seem to have is the verticality of the swinging. Spidey seems to be made of lead when he tries to swing upwards, because I counted many times where I would need to swing up and need to take several swings to reach that point. It's especially annoying hearing Mary Jane in your ear saying, "I want to go even higher" for the 45th time. I do too, Mary Jane, but Activision doesn't want us doing that. I can't explain how weird it is to go straight from playing Spider-Man 2 to this and feeling like the swinging controls are always wrestling you to the point where I actively avoided side content, only swinging to go from story segment to story segment. Speaking of, the first few segments of this game center around several gangs Spider-Man is fighting off, from subways to theaters to warehouses filled with explosives. While all of this is going on, lizard people are starting to infect the streets, much to everyone's confusion. This gets the attention of the Daily Bugle and introduces us to J. Jonah Jameson once again. But this time he's voiced by the man himself, J.K. Simmons, and I can't tell you how wonderful it is to hear this voice in this game. Oh my lord.
That's the 3rd call I got about giant lizards running amok in Gramercy Park. Giant lizards!
What the heck is this character model? In fact, what's up with all the character models? I thought Spider-Man 1's pre-rendered cutscenes looked off, but this might take the cake. It's like watching an in-progress Gmod animation. I've seen more complex Gmod animations. Nothing about this game's little details look good. From a distance, the city environment does look somewhat decent. It's the character models, texturing, and lighting that looks ugly as sin. Models without human faces look passable for a beta, but this game makes Sonic 06, another early 7th gen title, look good. Ugh. Back on topic, Jameson assigns us the task of taking some pictures of the lizard people infecting the streets, which eventually leads us to discovering a hidden sewer layer with Peter's professor, Dr. Curtis Connors, being the one responsible for the lizard people. He tries to inject himself with a formula to regrow his missing arm, but it instead warped him into the lizard. Now he plans on infecting the city of New York with the same formula. Peter stops the lizard's plan, but he escapes further into the sewers. When he comes back from the underground, he's attacked immediately by the new goblin, Harry Osborn's new identity, who plans on taking revenge for his father's death. It's here where I can bring up another addition this game makes, QTEs, or QuickTime Events. It was around this period of the late 6th generation and early 7th generation of gaming where companies saw the cinematic battles games like God of War were able to pull off thanks to QTEs and figured they would try to inject that idea into their games. In a case like Spider-Man, this isn't the worst idea, especially since this game is based on a film. Taking advantage of QTEs to make the ending of a boss fight exciting is a neat idea, and something games like the previously mentioned God of War and Spider-Man PS4 do wonderfully. How does this game do it? It sprinkles them throughout action sequences, boss fights, and in the case of the Harry fight, the entire boss battle is a QTE that repeats animations to an exhausting degree. They even animated every single QTE's theoretical failure, from the mundane to the brutal to the hilarious. Here's where I take issue with these. Most of the time, the game gives very little room for error. Unlike the majority of games that will make it a one-and-done failure, like Mortal Kombat X taking off a little bit of health for a failed QTE, or the option to straight up avoid them, this game will show you the failure animation, then either kill you or reset the start of the QTE animation with less health. If you keep failing, you will eventually die and have to restart the entire boss fight. This is an incredibly obnoxious way to design these fights. I understand the slight loss of health if I fail, but making me constantly replay these segments to fight the boss with little to no health is no fun. Want to know the weirdest part about these? They disguised loading screens with them too. The sewers are broken up into different sections, and instead of having a loading screen of Spider-Man swinging, you have to QTE your way across. If you fail, you get to watch him crawling out of the sewer water coughing and sputtering. I'm all for interactivity in my games, guys, but there's a point where trying to be cinematic goes too far, and I think this is it. Once you knock the goblin out and take him to the hospital to treat his wounds, you discover the Scorpion from the first game has a new set of armor and is attacking an armored van, which reveals the Rhino from the second game. Now, the fact that Scorpion and the Rhino are in custody makes sense. Scorpion was confused and alone after the first game, so it's possible the police or the military were able to kidnap him. The Rhino being in custody is simple. We beat him in the second game and left him for the police. Now, this is all well and good, but does Peter or anyone reference these events?
Yeah, no, there's no reference, no continuity, anything. Feels a little lazy for people that have gone through the trouble to play the other two games, like me. Thanks, guys.
Anyways, back to the plot. After more gang-related shenanigans, Peter finally heads to take on Scorpion, who he's figured out is being held against his will in a lab. We break in to save him, but we're forced to fight him thanks to an evil scientist using a mind-altering helmet to make Scorpion aggressive towards us. After a tedious boss fight full of QTEs, chase sequences, and aiming controls I'm surprised were even tested, we save Scorpion and head back home. It's at this point we're introduced to the alien symbiote, and it attaches itself onto Peter in his sleep, moving him outside for a much lamer recreation of the scene from the movie.
Hey, but hey, you know what? We've made it to the point where we finally get the black suit, the thing that they advertise on the box. It takes up half of the box, it takes up a majority of the back of the box. I mean, okay, how long did it take for us to get here? 4 hours. Alright, well, how long is the game? 8 hours?
I'm serious. Only halfway through the game do you finally gain access to the black suit. A reminder that the film, which shoehorned Venom in, at the very least had Peter dealing with the black suit and its effects for the majority of the second and third acts. Here, it's randomly thrown in with no regard for story pacing at all, and the player gets next to nothing for it. In fact, while Peter goes to fight Sandman, I might as well go over the issues with this game's combat. I've mentioned this before in my other Spidey reviews, but it bears repeating. Spider-Man is a glass cannon in these games. I could tolerate it in Spider-Man 2 though, because the majority of the enemies only required a decent combo string to down, or some basic bob and weave to incapacitate them. In this game, I'm not sure what happened, but Spider-Man, even with the black suit, has terrible damage output. Unless I'm gonna sit here and master every combo until I can infinite enemies, I will be forced to wait for enemy attacks with Spider Sense, or just staying out of range, and then do a very basic combo, and then continue to wait while the enemy does their predetermined animations. This isn't like a fighting game or other better Spider-Man games where the combat has flow to it. In this game, I am reduced to Stutterman, the hero whose power is playing a 3D action game like a turn-based RPG. Even worse is, as previously mentioned, the black suit doesn't give any significant combat advantages besides a rage meter that slightly increases damage output. And I do mean slightly. It's not enough to make a massive difference in the difficulty of these fights. Once Peter sends Sandman down the drain, it's back to more filler! Now with aggressive Tobey Maguire voice clips because of edgy Spider-Man trademark.
I've waited so long for this moment.
Yeah? I'm waiting to knock that smirk off your face. You owe me, old man.
Patience, my friend.
I'm not in the mood to wait. You promised to tell me the secret. Spill it.
Thank you, Spider-Man. I will keep them in a very safe place from now on.
You better. I'm done cleaning up your messes, old man.
You've hardly said 3 words all night. Is everything all right?
I figured you were talking enough for both of us.
Peter, what's gotten into you lately?
Nothing that's stopping your gums from flapping wouldn't solve.
While I'm on the subject, the voice work from Maguire in this game is his best, whether that be him understanding more what to do now, or the law of averages saying the third time's the charm. Every other major character besides Mary Jane has their voice work done by their film actors, which is cool, but besides Jameson and Sandman, who do decent jobs with the material given, poor Topher Grace.
Don't worry, Mr. Jameson. That picture of Spider-Man's in the bag. He's a criminal. Proving it's not gonna be a problem.
I'll take that.
Oh, you think you're smart, buddy? Well, think again. I hit a bunch of cameras around here, and now I have an even better shot than I was planning. You punching me in the jaw and taking my camera. So thanks.
Yikes. Weirdly, I am nostalgic for this era of bad licensed games, but I can't imagine this being the norm for this industry at one point. We have men and women like Erica Lindbeck, Patrick Seitz, Laura Bailey, Troy Baker, and tons more that bless us with dedicated and passionate performances. Then we have games like this that remind us that for every excellent voice performance, there lie at least a dozen bad ones. Now that we're in the black suit, how does the story play out? Outside of the movie's plot, with Peter screwing Eddie Brock out of a job, Peter fights Kraven the Hunter and the Lizard at the same time, trying to save Dr. Connors from the Hunter. If you played the Xbox version of Spider-Man 1, you got to play a console-exclusive level with him as the villain. They even bring this up in the cutscene, which only serves to confuse people that didn't play that version. Why mention a previous encounter for Kraven, but not the Scorpion or Rhino? That's, little confusing, guys. He does, but brutally injures Connors in the process, hospitalizing him. Peter starts to wonder if the black suit is more trouble than it's worth, but there's no time for that. The Kingpin has taken control of the 3 gangs that we've been beating up on all story, and now we have to beat him! Long story short, Peter is successful but ends up throwing Kingpin out of a very high window, possibly murdering him, though the game leaves us ambiguous, as Spidey can't find the body on inspection. It's at this point we go on a date with Mary Jane that ends less than amicably. It's at this point we give up the black suit at the church and...
Hey, wait a minute. How long did I have that suit for? You have gotta be kidding me.
2 hours? This game's box art features the black suit prominently. It was better implemented in the movie Sam Raimi was strong-armed into using it in. Do you mean to tell me the development team couldn't think of a better way to use it than 3 major story beats? That's incredibly weak. Anyways. Now with the suit off, Peter goes to help Scorpion remove his tail and help a recovering Dr. Connors cure the remaining lizard people stuck in the sewers. While this is going on, Sandman is licking his wounds from his encounter with Spidey in Central Park when Oh no.
Freak? I'm the freak. Have you looked in a mirror lately? Now, let's talk about how we're going to destroy the spider.
When we said we wanted Venom talking with his symbiotic face and not Topher Grace's, that didn't mean make his general demeanor that of a terrible Joker knockoff. Thankfully, Sandman is initially hesitant to join Venom, knowing he shouldn't be fighting Spider-Man again, but Venom threatens his daughter's life and forces his hands. And the final fight begins! It's incredibly similar to the movie, with Spidey fighting Venom alone at first until Harry comes to join in. I can't forget this, but they wait until now to give us a tutorial on how Harry plays. Bruce Campbell even jokes about this, saying, "I'm sure you'll be distracted during the fight, so I'll give you a quick rundown while you race there. Just because you know you made a dumb choice and point it out doesn't excuse it, guys." The Sandman fight is a QTE-filled and unusual one, with weird aiming controls for pumpkin bombs and having to use fire hydrants to moisten Sandman for an eventual finisher. Once that's done, Spidey fights Venom for the final time, leading to one of the more brutal kills I think I've seen in Spider-Man media. And yes, they did animate this if you fail. That's cold. Well, with that out of the way, the game ends on a much happier note than the film. While in the movie, Harry dies and Peter and Mary Jane pick up the broken pieces of their relationship, the game has a triumphant music piece and just says, "The price of Spider-Man is high."
You know what, Toby? You're right. The price of being Spider-Man, it's too high. I spent $60 on this game back in 2007, and I still feel ripped off.
This game isn't an unplayable mess, but this is not a good game. Boring, repetitive gameplay, frustrating controls, ugly graphics, poor pacing, and the selling point of the game being less than a quarter of the total playtime? No, thank you.
And with that, I have finished off my Spider-Man Raimi-thon, and despite the last game leaving a sour taste in my mouth, I did enjoy going back and seeing these games again, especially Spider-Man 2. I forgot how good and well thought out that game was, even for 2004 standards. But for next time, I think I'm going to be looking for something a little bit meatier in terms of content, but I'm not going to tell you what that game is. You'll have to come back next time to find out. Now, if you stuck around till the end of the review, I do want to thank you guys very much. As always, it greatly warms my heart. And if you have any thoughts or opinions on Spider-Man 3 yourself, whether it be the movie, the game, or any other related media to it, please leave it down in the comments below. I'm always reading and love to hear what you guys have to say. And just remember, be kind to each other, have a great night, and I will see you guys at the next review. Ciao.